The person you cannot stop thinking about probably is not the most loving person you have ever encountered. They are likely not the most attentive, not the most consistent, not the one who showed up when you needed someone, and yet they occupy more of your mental real estate than anyone who has ever loved you well. This is not a character failure, it is a neurological reality. And once you understand the mechanism behind it, you will never look at the concept of chemistry the same way again. In the 1950s, behavioral psychologist B.F. Skinner put rats in boxes with levers. Some levers dispensed food every time. Others dispensed food randomly, sometimes on the third press, sometimes the 30th. The rats with consistent levers learned to press when hungry and stop when full. The rats on random schedules pressed compulsively. They could not stop, even when they were not hungry, even when pressing produced nothing. The unpredictability itself had become the reward. This is variable ratio reinforcement, the most powerful conditioning schedule ever identified, and it runs in every push-pull relationship you have ever experienced as intense. The person ignoring you right now has more psychological control over you than anyone who has ever loved you consistently. And there is a reason for that, one that has nothing to do with chemistry. Your brain does not get addicted to certainty. It gets addicted to the possibility of a reward that keeps almost, but not quite, arriving. This is called variable reinforcement. It is the same mechanism that makes gambling compulsive. The slot machine does not pay every time. It pays just often enough to keep you pulling the lever. The person who is hot one day and cold the next has, whether they know it or not, turned themselves into a slot machine. Your nervous system cannot stop reaching for the lever, not because they are special, because they are unpredictable. But here is what no one tells you. There is a deliberate sequence to how the hot and cold cycle gets installed. And once you see the architecture, you will recognize it in every relationship you have ever called intense. The push-pull loop does not begin with coldness. It begins with warmth, unusual, intense, calibrated warmth, the kind of attention that feels like finally being seen. This phase conditions the nervous system to a specific emotional frequency. It establishes the baseline. Then, at the precise moment when attachment has formed but the person does not yet feel secure, the temperature drops, not to zero, to ambiguity, and the nervous system, calibrated to that frequency, begins searching for it. Each withdrawal followed by a return teaches the system. The warmth is still there. I just have to reach for it correctly. The loop is now operational. Behavioral economics establish that losses feel approximately twice as painful as equivalent gains feel good. Losing $20 hurts more than finding $20 feels good. The push-pull loop weaponizes this asymmetry with precision. The withdrawal does not just create absence. It creates loss, the psychological experience of something you had being taken, and the brain's response to loss is not calm, recalibration. It is urgency, pursuit, the activation of every resource available to recover what was there. This urgency, this full system activation aimed at a single person, is neurologically indistinguishable from what we call obsession. There is a specific moment in every push-pull dynamic when the target crosses from interested to obsessed. Most people never know when it happened, but the person running the loop knew exactly when to trigger it. The withdrawal has to come at a precise point, not too early, not after too much warmth. The ideal window is right after a moment of genuine connection. That is when the pullback lands hardest, because now the brain is not just chasing a reward it has not had. It is chasing a reward it had and lost. Loss aversion is twice as powerful as acquisition drive. The push after the pull does not create longing. It creates urgency. And urgency, neurologically, is indistinguishable from love. The most dangerous version of this loop is not the obvious hot and cold. It is the one that runs on a delay so long you never connect the withdrawal to the warmth that preceded it. That version has a name, and it is running in more relationships than you think. Running underneath the variable reinforcement loop is a second mechanism that compounds it. Blumer's Zeigarnik identified in 1927 what cognitive psychologists would later confirm with brain imaging. The mind cannot stop processing an unfinished task. It holds open loops in active working memory, returning to them involuntarily. An ambiguous relationship is an open loop the mind cannot close. The person who never fully arrives and never fully leaves exists in your active processing indefinitely. The preoccupation is not attachment. It is cognition trapped in an unclosed file. When these mechanisms are deployed with awareness rather than instinct, the effect is significantly amplified. The sophisticated practitioner of push-pull does not simply alternate warmth and coldness at random. They calibrate the withdrawal to follow genuine connection, because post-connection withdrawal produces maximum loss aversion activation. They time the return to coincide with peak distress, because relief after pain creates gratitude disproportionate to what was provided. And they maintain perpetual ambiguity about the nature of the connection, because the open loop must never fully close if the preoccupation is to be sustained. This is not chemistry. This is architecture. The Zeigarnik Effect was discovered in a Russian cafe in the 1920s, and it explains exactly why you cannot stop thinking about someone who never fully commits. Blumer Zeigarnik noticed that waiters could remember every detail of an open order, but forgot a completed one the moment the check was paid. The brain keeps unfinished tasks in active memory. An ambiguous relationship is an unfinished task. The person who never quite commits, never quite leaves, never gives you a clear answer. Your mind cannot file them away. They live in active memory perpetually, not because of who they are, because the loop is open. And an open loop is a cognitive emergency the brain never stops trying to close. What happens when someone deliberately leaves the loop open, not out of confusion, but as a strategy? That is what the next part of this video exposes. The exit from a push-pull loop is not willpower. Telling yourself to stop thinking about someone whose absence your nervous system has been trained to treat as an emergency does not work, and the failure to simply decide to stop feeling what you feel is not weakness. It is physiology. The exit requires something more fundamental. The recognition that what you have been experiencing as magnetic intensity is a conditioning pattern, that the preoccupation is not evidence of a unique connection, that the urgency is not information about the value of the relationship. It is the output of a loop, and a loop, once named, loses the authority of the unnamed. Real connection does not feel like urgency. It does not feel like the relief of a slot machine paying after a long, dry run. It feels like consistency, which the nervous system trained on push-pull will initially read as boring, as lacking in intensity. That perceived absence is not the absence of chemistry. It is the absence of anxiety. The person who can sit with the quietness of genuine safety long enough to let the nervous system recalibrate will discover something the push-pull loop was specifically designed to prevent them from finding, that safety is not the consolation prize. It is the point.